Guys, we're an hour into the show. Actually, officially. That was weird how that worked.
That
was really weird. I totally planned that. But and we haven't talked about a certain stat, not the 3-point shot, a certain stat. And we need to, because it's a little uncharacteristic of a Joe Mazzulla Celtics. And you guys might know, I see there's a little Seamus Smart coming. You guys might know what I'm going to talk about and bring up, but it's that assist numbers. Guys, the Celtics under Joe Mazzulla have been a very, very phenomenal passing team. They share the ball. You can see it right there on the ticker right now. 13 team assists, 18 team turnovers. I mean, it's very rare for you see the Celtics team to have at least 13 team turnovers. Forget to have more turnovers than assists, guys. A lot of isolation play. Credit to Orlando's defense. Are you poking at Boston tonight? What was it? Or both? Probably both.
Max, yeah. I think we have to give our credit to Orlando tonight. They did a great job tonight with ruffling the feathers of the Boston Celtics. If there's a way to do it, the Orlando Magic showed the NBA how to do it. And hopefully that's a kick in the butt to the Boston Celtics. I hope this is that type of wake-up call game that no team is taking you lightly anymore, nor should they. But no team is now like, oh, we're playing the Boston Celtics. It's going to be an automatic loss tonight. There's ways to beat the Boston Celtics, and one of them is punching them in the throat. It's something that we want to see the Celtics be able to respond to and reciprocate that type of energy. And I think that being able to get those types of assists and being able to get that fluid motion that we're so accustomed to as Celtics fans. What we're used to is when the team is one player gets hot, it is infectious towards everyone else on the court. And we just haven't seen that as much this year. And I mean, Jaylen Brown was able to get his buckets, and it seemed like everyone else was just finding their own way to score tonight. But we need to see them be able to find those looks and be able to create those opportunities for others. It's something that Derek White would have been able to take advantage of. Kristaps Porzingis or Drew Holiday, someone that we didn't see show up tonight was Peyton Pritchard, which you're lucky to have a player on your bench that can score 20 points in a game and doesn't need to be written into the Joe Mazzulla game plan. You can just put him out there and he'll just be a bucket getter. That's not going to happen every night, and that's not a luxury the Celtics can take for granted. It's being able to rely on your star players to get the ball into each other's hands and being able to kick out. I think they did a much better job tonight of being multidimensional and attacking the rim. I think before the first half was over, the Celtics had, I'm blanking on the amount of points in the paint they had, but they were able to get to the rim. They were creating those opportunities. And I just think that it's something that teams can game plan to and adjust to. So being able to have those multi ways of scoring, and when people refer to the Boston Celtics, they like to say the Boston Celtics have 5 All-Stars. It doesn't really seem like it this year. It's something that is like just a on paper type of look. Obviously, we know what these players are capable of, and we all know they're capable of being all-stars if they were playing to each other's advantages. But it's something that we look at and we see Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum. They don't feel like they're getting the respect they deserve, or the Drew Holidays not getting the type of respect they deserve. So they're trying to do it on their own, and they don't realize that was what won them the championship entirely last season, is their team chemistry.
But I will hop in here and say, Franco, this was a standalone scenario. like this is just an outlier game, right? Where you're not going to see this many more. Really, you probably not see this again all year. So I don't really think it's like the Celtics are trying to isolate everybody and they're playing hero ball. They were tonight, like they just couldn't. I don't know if it was more so they were trying to play isolation. I think a lot of it had to do with two things, real quick. Two things. One, so the Orlando was giving them hell. Two, the Celtics have lost the ability to function as an offensive unit at an extremely high level without Jayson Tatum on the floor. They have shifted gears and shifted focus to the offense revolves around Jayson Tatum, and players like Derek White, players like Jrue Holiday, who we've seen were so effective and efficient at. You never saw Derek White make a bad play, right? He never made a bonehead play. I saw about 4 of them tonight, and I could probably count more and more this game. So for me, right, I look at a game like tonight, and it's just this team doesn't know how to function offensively at an extremely high level if number 0 is not walking through that tunnel suited up for the game, I think.
Yeah, you said it, what I was saying, but in layman's terms, I think that it's a way of looking at it. I think that being dependent on a all-star like Jayson Tatum is something that you see lower caliber teams do. And when you have a team full of talent, you need to be able to disperse it evenly throughout. And that's how you maintain those games where we're having a different player on the player spotlight repeatedly. We're not just seeing Jaylen Brown or Jayson Tatum up on the top of our screen. We're seeing Kristaps Porzingis. We're seeing Derek White and Jrue Holiday start to get worked in there. And it's just the functionality of being able to have Jayson Tatum being that facilitator and that primary focus for the Celtics. You need to be able to show that you have more than just one weapon.
Well, let's disclaim this first of all. Punching the Celtics in the throat is not an actual game plan, as Goga Batadze showed tonight getting ejected by nearly punching Kristaps in the throat. But poking fun just there, the whole turnover thing tonight was very frustrating for the Celtics considering they forced 20 turnovers on the other side of the ball.
Right.
With the Orlando Met. Early on, it seemed like, oh, nice. The Celtics, they're just forcing turnovers all over the place. They're getting after it in transition, scoring off of turnovers, getting inside the paint. 24 points in the paint in the first quarter for the Celtics, yet for the rest of the game, they only scored 26 points in the paint, if I'm not mistaken. They had 50 for the entirety of the game. So early on for the Celtics, it seemed like, oh, this is going to be a nice lockdown defensive performance where they force those turnovers, get in transition, score in the paint, and just go all out in that category. Yet on the other side of the ball, that's exactly what the Orlando Magic were doing to the Boston Celtics progressively in this game as it went on, because at one point it seemed like, oh, we're winning the turnover margin. Here we go. We're winning the points off turnovers. And the away broadcast and even the home broadcast, they're both highlighting that. Yet in the end, Orlando has 20 turnovers, and you look at the Celtics, 18 turnovers for the night and only 13 team assists, and that 100% shows the Celtics' inability to play without Jayson Tatum this season. And it feels like, for some reason, although they won the title last year, the Celtics won the title last year, this season almost feels like some guys, when Jayson Tatum isn't out on the floor, they don't really understand their role as they did last year or understand it in its entirety, because of course the roles do shift around when your most important player is off the floor, and his Jayson Tatum is the focal point of the offense and everything is just revolving around Tatum constantly. We kind of look at it and go, okay, when he's off the floor, whose role is it to play make? Whose role is it to be the primary guy on the floor? And typically that can be Jaylen Brown. We've seen Pritchard be that guy this year. Yet tonight we saw Derek White was actually more so that guy than Peyton Pritchard was at various moments of this game. And it feels like it's all flipped around for the Celtics when Jayson Tatum just exits the floor. We've seen this even in games when he's playing, where Jayson Tatum against the Chicago Bulls the other night exits the floor in the early fourth quarter. The Celtics don't score at all. They can't get any stops. So the Chicago Bulls start running ahead of the Celtics. And that's what's really confusing about this team this year, is that it didn't feel like it was that way at all last year. It felt like a more team effort, a collective effort from everybody scoring the basketball and being a part of the offense. And this year, it's not as if the Celtics aren't playing a team-oriented style of basketball because they are still one of the better team-oriented teams in the entire league in terms of being unselfish. And other coaches, of course, rave about it with the Boston Celtics and other analysts from around the league. When the Boston Celtics come through their arena or they visit Boston, they always harp on that specific statement of the Boston Celtics are so unselfish, and that is what ultimately makes them such a great team. Yet there are occasions in which we see tonight and when Jayson Tatum exits the floor where it does feel like, oh, this team, they don't really know how to play as a complete unit offensively. And there are so many reasons to that. Number one being Jayson Tatum is off the floor. It doesn't seem like the functionality is all there. But number two, it almost does feel like the emotions part of it, where yes, we won last season, we know what to do, yet the team isn't actually putting an emphasis on what the team needs to do in order to actually rack up those assists, rack up those open 3-point shots, because that is what we want to see out of this Boston Celtics team. I thought we saw it down the stretch in this game, as we highlighted earlier, where, oh, yeah, we're down 10 with 6 minutes left, or we're down 10 with 3 minutes left. Here comes the Boston Celtics. Yet, when the avalanche was happening on top of the Celtics, when they were being outscored by 19 points in the second half, it didn't feel like the Celtics were playing like that whatsoever, playing like a team. They were playing more, oh, Jaylen Brown, you take the ball, your turn. Oh, Peyton Pritchard, your turn. Oh, Derek White, your turn. Oh, Porzingis, you get an opportunity here. And that can't be a your turn, my turn type of thing as the season goes on, because we talk about building those good habits as a basketball team. Jayson Tatum, I don't want to say he's super durable as a player, and knock on wood for Jayson Tatum's health here, but it's not always guaranteed you're going to have Jayson Tatum every single night, even in the playoffs. He could come down with what we saw, remember, in Game 7 in 2023. That was at the end of the playoff run, but he had an ankle injury. If we win that Game 7, what if he's not available for the NBA Finals? The team has to find a way to play without him, and ultimately, in a night like tonight against the Orlando Magic, who are playing super hard, Jalen Suggs is hounding everybody. The Magic just have versatile wings across the board. You can easily see why the Orlando Magic are not struggling mightily without Boncaro and Franz Wagner. They have versatile wings all over the place. Their guards play super hard. They're really an admirable team right now, because it seems like they're a team that should just roll over without their two best players, and even losing Mo Wagner last game. Yet that is not happening in any sense whatsoever. Against a team like that, that's when good habits can be formed for the Celtics. And tonight, it really felt like it was going the other way for the Boston Celtics, where they're actually forming more bad habits than good ones. And it certainly indicates itself in the number of 13 team assists to 18 team turnovers. And meanwhile, you forced 20 turnovers on the other side of the ball. Great performance there, but you didn't take advantage of it because you allowed it to happen to yourself.
I mean, it is a very weird dynamic, and I don't know when it shifted. Quite frankly, I think it shifted in the playoffs last year, where Tatum really was the focal point. I mean, the ball. I mean, really, it's a little Luka-esque now, right? Not obviously not to that, it's not just dribble, screen, right? But in the sense where the offense revolves around Tatum now. Like truly. I mean, it is Tatum operates how the offense is played for about 75% of the game, right? There is still a heavy portion, maybe 65. There's still a heavy portion of the game where it's not, but a lot of the game is, okay, Tatum, you drive, you kick the ball out so the ball can get swung and the defenders will help, or a lot of it is a high pick and roll so Tatum can get downhill. I mean, it really is a lot of Jayson Tatum within the functionality of the offense. I think let's highlight it. It's been highlighted. We have multiple videos, I want to say, on our YouTube channel where we talk about it. Hey, go check those out if you haven't. Little self-plug right there. But, it's worth addressing. No doubt about it.
And let's add this too. You talk about the pick and roll. Was that not working early on with Luke Cornett? And Brian Scalabrine even pointed out, keep going to that, keep going to that. Well, Luke Cornett played 20 minutes, only took 4 shots, was 2 of 4 or 5 rebounds. Felt like he could have been more involved on the offensive side of the floor, especially when considering the bigs the Orlando Magic had out there. Don't want to undersell their bigs whatsoever. Wendell Carter and Goga Batadze, they're good bigs, but this is also a matchup where we look at Cornette and Cater the entire year. Not necessarily talking on Cater right now, but more so Cornette.
Right.
When you have the matchup of another team that does not have perimeter-oriented bigs, that is when you can really insert a Cornet. That is when you can really insert a Keita. And that's when Porzingis theoretically should be taking over, because not only can he score on the interior, he can score from the perimeter as well. And you can start mismatching all of these different matchups with Jaylen Brown. Of course, Jayson Tatum isn't in the lineup, but of course he would be a huge one in that aspect if he were there tonight. But that's when you can really switch up another team and attack them and take away what they want to do to you. In the Celtics tonight, felt like from a game plan perspective, couldn't quite get that going at all. Couldn't get it going.
Well, it poses the question, does this team have an identity with Jayson Tatum off the floor? Again, right? It's a question, not making a statement, not saying they don't, not saying they do. I would lean right now to not really having one. I haven't seen much evidence that supports they kind of know what they're doing out there without Tatum. But it's definitely a topic of conversation, right? It's something that you're going to have to highlight. It's something that we're going to have to talk about more moving forward. It's something that I think Boston themselves within a game planning situation need to look at because they've been pretty bad at times when JT's not out there. I will say, as an avid JT's top 3 supporter, it's a hell of an MVP narrative. I mean, I don't want it. I'd rather win basketball games, and I think Tatum would too than Tatum win MVP. But I mean, it's up there. It's out there. I mean, you saw it tonight. You saw what he did Saturday night, and then you followed up with him not being here and what just happened and transpired. It might add some fuel to that MVP fire, guys.